Welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. My name is Theresa Castillo, and I am the Chief Program Officer for HealthRight International. And today I will serve as the session moderator. On behalf of HealthRight and the Ukrainian Foundation for Public Health, we welcome you to the Commission on the Status of Women, CSW66, virtual panel on the economic empowerment of women GBV survivors, success stories from Ukraine. We are extremely humbled and honored to host this panel with our esteemed colleagues in the midst of active, ongoing conflict. This parallel event was developed before the challenging context of the war and humanitarian crisis that we're now experiencing. We acknowledge that today is day 28 of the hostilities. And since the invasion nearly 1 month ago, local civil society organizations have been critical actors in the humanitarian response, assuming the large responsibility of responding to the emergency relief needs of children and families fleeing the war. We also anticipate that CSO's role will be increasingly more significant in the years to come as the war ends and Ukraine moves towards recovery and rebuilding. Today, our panelists will highlight best practices and efficient models of empowerment that have been leveraged during this time of active combat in Ukraine. We will present successful cases of social entrepreneurship and career support initiatives, including cases during wartime launched and implemented in partnership with committed donors, such as the United Nations Population Fund. But first, I would like to review some housekeeping rules for our session. One, we ask that all participants keep microphones on mute out of respect for our speakers and our translators. We have a tight schedule, so we will try to adhere to the timeline and hold questions to the end of the session. Please feel free to enter your question into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. We will manage these questions accordingly and try to get to all of those questions as time permits. As you may also note, translation is being provided as needed into English and Ukrainian. That can be also accessed at the tab at the bottom of the screen. We are recording this session, and we will share with everyone who is registered for this event. We will also post the recording on HealthRight's website, Facebook and YouTube channels, as well as UFPH's website, Facebook and YouTube channels for general public access. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce HealthRight International's Executive Director, Dr. Peter Navario, for welcoming remarks. Peter?
Thanks, Theresa. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. And on behalf of HealthRight International and all of our programs all around the world, just wanted to send our greetings. HealthRight, as Theresa noted, I'm executive director of HealthRight, a global health NGO devoted to improving health outcomes within marginalized communities around the world. HealthRight has worked in Ukraine since 2005, improving the lives of people living with HIV, people who use drugs, people in conflict with the law, vulnerable adolescents, survivors of gender-based violence, and many more marginalized communities. When we started planning this panel 6 months ago, we were thinking about focusing on the achievements of the Break the Circle Career Hub, a project launched by our local subsidiary, the Ukrainian Foundation for Public Health, to address the issue of economic dependence among survivors of GBV by providing career support with a focus on reaching women survivors of GBV. Today, however, given the current context, we're going to highlight, we were going to highlight 10 social enterprises that provide work specifically for women who've experienced domestic and gender-based violence. But of course, February 24th has dramatically changed the context. We will still focus on some of those projects, but we will discuss the issue of economic empowerment of women as being part and parcel of freedom from violence more broadly. And we will talk about the Career Hub itself and how the hub and the social enterprises are functioning in the current context of war. So in advance of those discussions, and before I turn it back over, just a few kind of framing comments that I'd like to share with you as we sort of thought about this panel today. One note that we wanted to convey is that projects that strengthen the economic capacity of Ukraine are essential today as part of relief efforts, as they will be tomorrow in recovery efforts. There are already more than 6 million internally displaced people in the country. Those people need employment and economic security as soon as possible. And so in that context, economic empowerment remains a priority for relief efforts, again, as well, and then down the road for recovery efforts. Given the war, most men in Ukraine are either serving in the armed forces or local defense units. And so developing and sustaining economic and entrepreneurship programs for women will be critical. So sort of centering women in our efforts. This may include enterprises that address the needs of local civilian populations or the military, perhaps focusing particularly on displaced populations. And this is an important area for us where civil society, particularly international civil society and international organizations, could provide financing and consulting for startups, as well as challenge funding for supporting and sustaining businesses. The third point I wanted to mention is that at HealthRight and at the Ukrainian Foundation for Public Health, we've rapidly transformed our career hub in the current context in order to pivot towards the current circumstances and get resources into the hands of Ukrainians to lead these efforts, these current relief efforts, and to innovate in this crisis. And again, whether we're talking about economic empowerment as we are here today, or addressing other public health or psychosocial service needs, getting resources into Ukraine and into the hands of Ukrainians and Ukrainian communities is critically important. So we want to emphasize that. And then finally, just to note that gender-based violence continues to be an important issue, even in the context of the war, and perhaps even more so. So as we focus on pressing relief needs, addressing the needs of gender-based violence survivors must also remain a priority. It's a priority for us here at HealthRight. And we urge other civil society organizations and the government, donors, partners to bear this in mind and to continue to focus on the needs of gender-based violence survivors. So with those few thoughts, I'd just like to conclude by thanking you for joining us today. Very much looking forward to discussions. I hope you find the discussions and our panelists thought-provoking and inspiring. Thanks to everybody for being here. Theresa, back over to you.
Thank you so much for your remarks, Peter. Today, we are also very honored to be joined by Olga Revuk, the Deputy Minister of Social Policy of Ukraine. Please, Olga, I invite you to share your welcome remarks.
Добрий вечір всім присутнім. І, знаєте, в такий складний час я, звичайно, зараз не беру участі в дуже багатьох заходах, яких брала участь до війни. Тому що є дуже багато тих пріоритетних речей, які робити потрібно негайно, і це відбувається щохвилини з 6 ранку до ночі. Гуманітарна криза, дійсно, гуманітарна криза в деяких регіонах України, там, де люди не мають навіть води і не допускаються гуманітарні коридори. Це ті міста, які вже, на жаль, можна констатувати факт, що цих міст вже немає, тому що вони повністю знищені. І саме в такий важкий період для України і для кожного громадянина сьогодні ми розуміємо, що в цей складний час є дуже важливим можливість кожної жінки, кожної людини стояти незалежно на своїх ногах і особливо забезпечити себе і своїх рідних, і своїх дітей. І надзвичайно важливо, щоб кожен з нас робив свою справу, кожен на своєму місці. І лише таким способом ми можемо вистояти і можемо перемогти цю війну. Саме тому я приєдналася сьогодні буквально на 10 хвилин до даного заходу, щоб підкреслити важливість тієї справи, яку ви всі сьогодні тут робите. Всі присутні особливо зараз розуміємо, наскільки важливим є соціальний захист жінок, дітей, і особливо особливу увагу варто приділити тим жінкам, які є
social
It is
support
also
of
important
people that
to
are
make
internally
sure
displaced.
that
And
we
according to
have
our data,
to
we're
help
speaking
these
about 12
women,
million people.
IDP,
So those are people
and
internally
that's
displaced
about
inside
12
the
million
country.
people,
We're
and we
not
are not
speaking
talking
about the
about
number
the
of
people
people
that
that already left
are
the country.
already gone,
So in
and
many cases,
especially
we're
those
speaking about
women with children,
mothers
and
and
also
children.
providing
We
their
must support
social
them, the social
participation in all the
activity
activities that is
in all
happening
types of
in
activity in
Ukraine. It's very
Ukraine, and this is
important.
very important
Today,
to have this in
here
Ukraine.
we
Today we have, among
present
others, the
those
representatives
social
of social
enterprises
enterprises,
that, according to our
and with
mutual
our joint initiative with the Ministry of Social
work
Policy,
together
with
with
Ukrainian
the
Foundation for Public Health, all those
Ukrainian
organizations, they
Foundation of
are
Public
active
Health,
and
they
they work.
function and
That's
they
why I
work.
would
So
like
I would
to
like to
say thank you for you
to create
to be
all
inspired.
necessary
Please
services and
produce
goods.
very nice
Your
and useful
families and
things.
all the people
And
of
it is
Ukraine
very important
that
for everybody because you
are
support
in a
yourself, you
very
support your
bad
families.
situation now.
That's
Thank
why
you so
thank
much.
you
I
very
would
much,
like
and
to
I wish we
express
will
good luck to all of you,
win
and thank you
in
for
the
your
nearest
attention.
future. Thank you for your attention.
Many thanks to you, Deputy Minister. We recognize this is a very busy time and we appreciate your presence here today. We are also pleased to invite UNFPA's Regional Coordinator for GBV Response, Henia Dakkak, to share remarks. Please, Henia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to this panel. You know, today we all feel, and I want to just say first and foremost, I want to salute the courage and stand in solidarity with all the women and girls of Ukraine, because without that, you know, I mean, we all need this war to stop, and we all need peace. For women and girls to have economic rights, we need to have peace at home, peace at work, peace in the community, and peace in the country. Without that, there will be no, you know, ability to really respond to all the needs of women and girls in these type of situations. We all agree, and I want, you know, I mean, to really recognize the minister, the deputy minister who talked before. You know, every woman at the moment is on the front line, whether she is in the country displaced or she has moved out of the country in neighboring countries. So we are looking at, you know, the totality of the 10 million people at the moment who have been displaced and made refuge in other countries. This is a huge amount of population that needs to be served and served at the moment immediately. So there is no time to waste. For women and girls to have economic rights, we need to have peace. And we all agree that women and economic rights, especially in relation to work and income, and to advance economies and to have sustainable development and to improve their livelihoods, they need peace. They need to be able to do that. In a current situation of war, you cannot do all of that. So we need, first and foremost, we need this war to stop. However, women remain more affected by poverty, unpaid care and burdens, and insecure work than men. The realization of sexual and reproductive health and rights plays a crucial role in empowering women economically. Realizing their sexual and reproductive health rights is necessary for women and girls to stay healthy, to participate in education, and to participate on all facets of life, including economic life free from violence. And this is very important for all the GBV survivors, for all the gender-based violence survivors, whether they are survivors from intimate partner violence, or they are survivors of what is happening now when you have war and rape being utilized as weapon of war. We need to make sure that these women and girls have first the support they need, the health care first that they need, the sexual and reproductive health care, the clinical management of care that needs to be provided. And at the same time, we need to make sure that they are integrated and they are integrated back into their communities and provided with all the support whether it's economic empowerment, whether it is, you know, supporting them to really rebuild their lives after these type of heinous crimes. So we want to make sure that, you know, we provide the mental health and the psychosocial support that women and girls need, and the survivors of gender-based violence need. At the moment, I don't know how you are doing this event in this type of situation. I salute the courage of everyone and every person who's basically attending this event tonight. Let me say, you know, a few words. You know, I want to make sure that we understand that lack of access to sexual and reproductive health acts as significant barrier to post-primary education for girls. So addressing the barriers remains a priority for us. And it's very important that, you know, we actually realize the sexual and reproductive health and rights is necessary and a precondition for achieving economic justice. I want to also say that if you are, you know, if you are pregnant and you are also wanting to care for your family, you have triple burden. You have to make sure that you are safe. You want to make sure that your child is safe, and you want to make sure that you are taking care of also your family and remaining family. And I have been on the front line, you know, on the border, seeing how difficult it is for women who are pregnant or women who are lactating, or who have also additional burden of taking care of their elderly people, their younger children. All of this has a burden on women, and it actually deters women. But today, the event is really to salute and encourage all the potentials that women are having at the moment. You are working on making sure that you have new aspects in life, and you are working to make sure that this is continue to happen while there is a war and post-war. And I agree with the first speaker that this is very important, and the way we need to really support women-led organization who are on the front line, you know, community-led organization, women-led organization, and youth women-led organization is very, very important in order for us to have a new future free of violence. And I will stop here and give the floor to others, but thank you for including us, and I salute all the women of Ukraine. Over from my side.
Thank you, Henia, for your highlighting the importance and recognizing the vulnerability of women and children during crisis, but also for your remarks and underscoring the potential to achieve a future free from violence, which is essentially our goal during these difficult times. I now invite our first speaker, Halina Skipalska, who is representing HealthRight Ukraine as our country director, but also executive director of the Ukrainian Foundation for Public Health. Today, she will be sharing case studies from Ukrainian CSOs, civil society organizations, and sharing experiences during this first phase of the war. Halina?
Thank you, Theresa. I will need help from Natalia Voronitska, who will show my presentation. Good afternoon, good morning, dear colleagues and friends. As Peter Navario told us when we planned our panel in November, we wanted to present the achievements of the Break the Cycle Career Hub, the project under which we launched specialized career support for women, GBV survivors, and social entrepreneurship initiatives. They are based on the models elaborated by the Ukrainian Foundation for Public Health, local sub-entity of HealthRight International. 10 social enterprises differ from thousands of other small businesses in Ukraine, as they work especially for women who have experienced domestic and gender-based violence. Next, please. Russia aggression against Ukraine started on February 24, and has dramatically changed all projects and the situation in Ukraine. Actually, we divided life into before and after. On this slide, we see a photo where children are living behind normal life. But this doesn't mean that we will stop. We will continue to work. We'll search for the best employment opportunities for women. We'll help them bring up their children and rebuild Ukraine. Today, we will talk not only about the economic empowerment of women as a key to freedom from violence. Today, we would like to tell you how the Career Hub and social enterprises work in the war context. And each speaker will tell you how their social entrepreneurship initiatives have changed after February 24. Well, when we launched a new component with UNFPA support in November 2020, we knew from the previous projects and piloting specialized services for survivors of domestic violence that the development of women's careers is a key for their economic empowerment. That's why we created the Break the Cycle Career Hub within the new component and hired additionally 8 career advisors to assist women with creating and implementing their career development roadmaps. Also, we built dedicated teams to launch social entrepreneurship initiatives. Next, please. Who is a career advisor? A career advisor is an expert who evaluates a woman's background, who helps to write a competitive CV, suggests areas for development and training courses, assists with improving professional skills and finding a job. Next, please. You actually can visit the platform careerhub.org and see how the Career Hub works. The Break the Cycle Career Hub platform provides the following services to women: individual consultations on how to write CV and create a career plan, advice on developing career goals, professional courses and webinars, open vacancies, and internship at social enterprises. Next, please. For example, a client doesn't have a qualification. In that case, our project provides a client her with opportunity to professionally develop in different areas and learn a popular profession. For example, it can be marketing, HR, or SLM. Here you can see a list of career advisor services. It starts from identification of resources and up to recommendations on building good relations with colleagues at the new workplace, for example. Next, please. Today, 8 career advisors continue to provide services to clients from all over Ukraine. You can see map where they work actually. During the year of the project implementation, more than 3,000 women, actually 3,356 women received services, of which 1,358 took training courses and learned a new profession, and 205 found a new job. I think it is a real success. Next, please. Another focus of the component is establishment of social enterprises. I believe that the success of the component lies in the combination of training courses with an employment campaign for social enterprises. This allows to train staff in accordance with the needs and profile of the company, and at the same time, they can hire qualified workers who are trained and knowledgeable and highly motivated to work for the company. In fact, all 10 social enterprises use the same approach and have a mission to create jobs for women in past for women who suffered from domestic violence. This was goal of the project. Despite the common principles and shared values, enterprises operate in different areas. For example, there are a social studio in Kyiv, in Lviv, a beauty salon and coffee shop in Mykolaiv, a photo studio in Kherson, a beauty studio in Vinnytsia, craft cafe and confidential cafe in Kryvyi Rih, and laser studio in Zaporizhia, sewing studio in Cherkasy, where victims of gender-based violence with disabilities work, MySpace clothing printing studio in Poltava, and Stitch It Cool in Litopol. Also, all companies were founded in 2021. All owners, without exception, have already managed to employ and organize internships for women, providing them with qualified jobs and opportunity to earn money for themselves and their children. And this support is crucial for women when they stay in shelters and take a decision to end, for example, a relationship with abuser. The few words about role of the Ukrainian Foundation for Public Health. As an implementing partner of the project, was to provide guidance and support to the civil society organizations at all stages of launching and implementing social entrepreneurship initiatives, from writing a business plan to making a profit and reaching a break-even point. During the war, social enterprises very quickly customized their services. Today, you will hear from representatives of 3 organizations how they managed to organize their work in the war context. I would like to thank them and tell you about a few of them or other. So here you can, at this slide, you see, for example, GG Space Mykolaiv teams continue to work with Mykolaiv, Kherson, and now Kyiv. In Mykolaiv, the social enterprise started to produce long-term food kits for vulnerable populations and civilians. They work as volunteers also. A humanitarian volunteer headquarters has been established in Kherson by their team of this organization. In addition, they provide online psychological counseling, as many Ukrainians have war-related trauma reactions because their houses were shelled and bombed. W2W Cherkasy, to what they are doing to cut blanks for balaclavas. They equip a shelter for 12 families with people with disabilities or mobility difficulties. They also collect and transport food, hygiene products, and to volunteer points. Now they also work as operators of humanitarian hotline of Cherkasy Regional State Administration. Another social enterprise, MySpace in Poltava. Today, at the request of Poltava Territory Defense Battalion, they sew bulletproof vests, sleeping bags, and so-called unloading for volunteers, military unions, and the armed force. To date, there is a great demand for unloading. The necessary skills have already been acquired, but there is a critical need for fabrics. There are also other, like beauty studio, Source of Beauty in Monaco, in Vinnytsia. They remains operational. Also, TSO Spring of Hope, for 20 days of the war, provided individual assistance to more than 300 families, including 285 children. They were given food and hygiene products, kits in 12 temporary shelters for internally displaced persons in their regions. Career advisors are also active and do incredible and vital things. Referral to shelters and other collective centers, logistic assistance to women and children moving across Ukraine and abroad, provision of humanitarian aid and assistance with finding a job in hosting communities where people are now reallocating from areas of active hostilities. And finally, I'd like to take this opportunity, United Nations Population Fund in Ukraine, for working together on implementation of this important component, and the UK government, its strong financial enterprises to help GBV survivors, social enterprises and career advisors for their contribution to building the system of combating domestic violence, and for things that they're dedicated to the work in the wartime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Halina, for your presentation and laying out the ways that your team has been able to adapt given the current humanitarian crisis. If I may ask a few questions, what are the biggest risks that you can note in the administration and subgranting of social enterprises?
Could you please repeat the question?
So it's difficult now to speak about risk because actually we in terms of administration, as for now, the main challenge is that administration of projects and grants, the main challenge is that we have no access to our records and documents which are stored in the office in Kyiv. So we week ago, 2 weeks ago, but most of staff left office in Kyiv. There are some people who still continue to work from Kyiv, but they have no access to these documents. But it took so first week was most difficult, but now we absolutely are fine and can manage projects through other places in Ukraine, like from Lviv, where I am currently, or from other locations where our accountants and project coordinators now are in Ukraine. So it's really a good question, but difficult to say what will be next. So as for now, we think that it's important to continue to support this work, and you will hear presentations from our partners. It's really need to continue to support them, and we will find opportunities and ways how to ensure administration of these grants in the future.
And so, in your opinion, will social entrepreneurship initiatives be relevant in Ukraine in the coming years and in connection with the war as we move towards rebuilding?
Yes, yes, Theresa, I absolutely think that it is important. Now, we often speak about humanitarian needs and humanitarian crisis. We also are doing now we provide other types of services in west of Ukraine with our team, and we see that it's also important to focus on economic empowerment of women. I understand that women who have small babies or women who have 2, 3 and more babies, it's difficult for them to start thinking about work, and probably state will provide some additional financial support for them. But for those who with whom now we work in Western Ukraine, they are ready to they are ready also to find some jobs and to be useful for country, to earn money for themselves and for their children. So I think it is very important issue, and even in terms of war in Ukraine, we have to think of this, and social entrepreneurships will tell you how they made reprogramming of their work and their activities, and you will see how helpful and useful they are even in this time during war in Ukraine.
Thank you, Halina. At this time, I now invite our next speaker, Uliana Dorosh, founder of the social dressmaking and tailoring studio Butterfly and head of charitable foundation of Butterfly, to present. She will address how the foundation adapted to meet the humanitarian needs of women in Western Ukraine through providing shelter. Uliana?
Доброго вечора, шановні колеги. Рада всіх
Hello, dear colleagues. I'm glad to hear and see everyone here. Really, it's not a great pleasure to be under such a situation. We still had some COVID meetings, and we hoped that in the very nearest future we would meet offline, but we still have to meet online. I would like to share my experience and the place where I get the devotion. And I'm pleased that even during this time of war, our atelier works on itself. And even on the third week of this military conflict, we started to work. Can you see my presentation? Next slide. So if we speak about our atelier as a whole, from the moment it was opened, in June it will be 1 year, and we already have 6 people from vulnerable categories and also the ones from GBV violence. We also had some training, vocational training of sewing. Women who never had practice or experience in this field, they were able to learn the craft, and the best students after these courses we had as our employees in the future. The internship that we had was very good because we had very good specialists that they have seen their lives in this tailor business, and I'm very happy that the backbone of our atelier, these are the women that complement such emotional push to women who don't know where to go. Next slide, please. So, speaking about our company, the main thing here, we have women's white shirts. Why so? White color is about purity, kindness, and it's very important to convey that a woman who comes to our enterprise and has gone through some difficult times of her life, she can start all over again, and she can actually write her book from the very beginning. And our white shirts, they actually were loved by Lviv residents. And besides these white shirts, white blouses, we also make ethnic goods like denim embroidered jackets. That's ecological product, and it is recognized not only in our region. It was bought even before war in the central part of our country. It was bought in the east of our country, in Severodonetsk, and they were happy because the development of our atelier started to shape into good motion. And I hope that we hope that very soon the war will be over. This process will be realized the way they were planned to. I also would like to say that it's very important for us to work with international brands. Our enterprise gets orders from Ruslan Baginsky, a notable designer. And from October, we actually got some orders for hats. We were contractors for them. And today, due to what is happening now, the brand actually came to Lviv region, and they are at our enterprise. And what is valuable for us is that women that worked in our enterprise, they are self-employed, they continue working, and the circumstances that they had in their work with this brand, they say that there are perspectives that they, in the future, will work through what to have their affiliate branch in the future. They will be not only to give these orders for us, but also they will give some trainings for these hats. Lviv region is a priority region for IDPs. That's why we already have 2 women from this category. And from the next week, they are starting their working at these orders. Besides the work of our enterprise, I can also say that the charity Butterfly, from the very beginning, started to work to get the humanitarian aid. If we speak about figures, through our fund, we've already had 50 tons of humanitarian aid. These could be different goods, packages of pride for women, also food for senior citizens, and support of our specialized institutions, and not only the social incline. And sure enough, our fund also is helping our military people. I also would like to mention that women also serve in our military, and we have orders for thermo linen for our women. And it's also a good start for socially socially responsible enterprise can help the state as a whole. Besides that, I would like to emphasize that in the Lviv region, we have a temporary shelter for IDPs. There are 585 institutions like this, and almost 485 are used for all these IDPs, for people who come from other territories. About 212,000 as of today have come to the Lviv region. These are the people who are who actually came here, and they will probably stay here. We are not talking about the people that left for good for the limits of our country. How do we do this duty work? We have the women on the permanent basis here in the Lviv region. We have 1 shelter for women and children, and also 2 daycare centers that we reformed for shelters where people can find refuge, namely 100 women plus children. So if we speak for the future, I would like to emphasize that creating such temporary shelters with the situation of our country is very important, and it is especially important to get support from international partners and organizations when organizing and working at this network. I also would like to say that our charity supports these initiatives. Here you can see the women. When we got acquainted with her her mother, and she came from Kharkiv, and the father was left there to protect our country. And this woman with three children, she made a decision for them to come, and she was given this shelter. And we have a very good partnership with European states. We have buses coming from from other countries. Our diaspora meets these people abroad, and they can actually also give some shelter and housing for them. Now we have very good collaboration with Poland, Italy, France, Netherlands. It's so good. Yes, there are people that can continue working and executing their activities in Ukraine, but also there are people that worry about the safety of their children, and they have to leave the country. And as I already mentioned, we have this photograph 2 weeks ago, Ruslan Baginsky with his team. And here we have the negotiations about our further work. We have tremendous plans because the facility of our enterprise is in the vocational school of design and modeling, and we have enough space to develop. And I hope that our international partners will support such a socially responsible enterprise. I would like to say that we are a social business, and during war that is happening in our country, it's very important to give the hand of help to the people about the circumstances that people faced when actually they had to start their lives from scratch. And we will be this bridge for them to help to go through this path. So colleagues, partners, it's so valuable that we all together do a very difficult, sometimes monotonous work. Maybe we are quite tired. Maybe for our state, it's a challenge. After this pandemics, we get into war. And I also would like to say that this support of international organizations for our country is very important. So let's hope that this cooperation and this assistance will be just improving and increasing. And we, on the other hand, will foster that such women with children, there won't be as many as there are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilyana. Thank you very much for your presentation and reminding us that in spite of war, we also have the pandemic that is ongoing, which continues to be a challenge as well. We really commend your efforts, your essential efforts to support women's empowerment as well as IDPs as they've been displaced. Particularly, we appreciate your reminder that women are also serving in the military in are very much in need of support as well. If I may just ask a few questions, I'm wondering if you could share with the audience how the idea of creating a social entrepreneurship came about and why this studio.
Ви знаєте, думка
You
була
know, this charity thought was actually in my head from when I was a student and while working in the social sphere, while working with such a challenging category of people. Social protection of people is actually helping them from being born and to death. While speaking to these people, normally it's about women who actually need this support. And I realized that I can actually combine my child dream. Actually, it was my dream from childhood, and it can be combined with charity. And by doing so, I can say that the charity is not only about asking for money from enterprises, but also creating the working place itself and give the work for women and get this good thing about improving this work and welfare of women. Yes, that's social business, but it is still business. And we understand that if it's a quality business, when we actually work at the quality work, and our mission is to show what it is like, because women under such circumstances, they can still make quality product. I actually have a dream that we'll be able to realize our dream, and our white shirts and blouses that our women make, they will be on podiums, on catwalks of Italy and France, and we do our best to teach, to train those women, because within our atelier, we also have psychologists. We also have a social pedagogue. We have a lawyer. When a woman comes to us, she needs to understand that she does not only get the working place where she can actually feed her family, her children, but also she can get the comprehensive bundle of those services that she will need in the future. Because a successful woman, it's when a woman is psychologically sound and healthy, but when she had some hardships, that means that she needs some help. So our atelier is kind of special. It's not only a place where a woman, it's like a 9 to 6 job. It's a place where she, it's a very flexible atelier. We do not have something like this, that she has to come at 9 and she has to leave at 6. We understand that if she is alone, she is an IDP, she has a child of 4 years old, we understand she cannot work the whole day. We are ready to help her, to take some steps for her to do her work that we actually gave to her, but she also needs to understand that she can leave her child for 2 or 3 weeks and to work with us.
Yes, I completely agree and
Так, я повністю згоден.
appreciate your holistic approach to
Мені дуже
recognizing
подобається ваш
the
охоплюючий
realistic
підхід
challenges
для того, щоб зрозуміти
that
ті
exist for
реалістичні
women.
виклики, які існують.
My next question for you is,
Моє
what do you
наступне
see
питання.
as the biggest
Що ви
challenges
бачите у
that you
якості
are
найбільшого виклику, найбільшої проблеми,
currently
з
in
якою ви
operating an
стикаєтеся
atelier during
зараз,
this
саме
time?
коли ви в ательє працюєте?
Перепрошую, не переклало, не до кінця зрозуміла. Направду, спершу, знаєте, коли почалася
In fact,
війна,
when the war started, the first days, the biggest challenge for me was that the majority of women working for me, for us, they will be out of their job. So we understood that we finalized with the orders we had before the war, but where to go next? Because we had certain potential clients, we had individual orders, and our potential clients, they flee the country. So our society, people, they are getting less and less rich, means they go into poverty. They won't spend money on clothes or fashions. They will spend money to hygienic items, to payments for rental of certain apartment or something. So we understood that we must somehow survive through this period, somehow to change our major line of activity and somehow to find new demand, so to say. So thanks God, we acquainted to each other, and in the time, in this hardship time of our country, we had to move, and many women, they moved and they continue working on the, say, under the auspice of our enterprise, and they continue to produce the heads and related items. So it's a great chance for them. So I didn't expect that I would be able to employ new people, new women, and I'm extremely glad that those women appears, they come to me, and we have a lot of work for them. And I even afraid that we won't have workplaces for that amount, that number of women that could approach us in the future. That's why Ruslan as well trying to find certain new crowdsourcing issues, crowdsourcing sources, probably some new grants, because we may continue this activity. And I could even mention a lady from Kharkiv. She was an owner of atelier there. Her and her husband, they joined us. Of course, we are most critical towards men, but in this tandem, they are very useful for our production because they complement each other. Another woman, she moved from Kyiv. She had a wedding salon, so to say, a wedding atelier in Kyiv. So we exchanged very nice vibrations with them. And now we understand that we have a joint aim with them. So we're useful for them and they're useful for us.
Thank you for your inspiring work, Juliana. Our next speaker is Andrei Goncharov, who represents the CSO Your Chance and the social enterprise greenhouses of Dobropol in eastern Ukraine. He will share more about employment opportunities for women seeking shelter in the region. Andrei, please, you have the floor.
Шановні колеги та колежанки, мої вітання.
Dear colleagues, my name is Olega Goncharov. I am from Dobropilya of Donetsk Oblast. Today, I introduce you to activity of our greenhouses. Do you see my presentation on the screen? Yeah, this is Teplice Dobropolye, means greenhouses of nice field, so to say. So the beginning of our operations is December 2021, when we mounted our greenhouses. We provided them with power supply, with heat supply. So We are marketologist, manager, market, and greenhouse workers. As well, our workers like people who are responsible for seeding everything to keep greenhouses in proper mode, means humidity, temperature, etc. Our major produce is greenery, means some grocery products. So we usually went into wholesales, and but some part of our produce we sold as a retail. So our major aim is professional potential and financial capacity development of women that survived from domestic or gender-based violence. Our organization started from 2007, involved in rehabilitation of ex-prisoners or some addicted persons, whether it is alcohol or drug addiction. So our center could work as rehabilitation center as well. And after that, those people could take part in our activity as an enterprise, social enterprise. Unfortunately, in Ukraine, the war has started. That's why we reoriented our activity, or say change our major line of activity. So what we are involved now, first of all, evacuation. By means of our own resources, we give people a chance to leave the combat action areas. Odessa, Oblast, Volnovakha, Severodonetsk, Popasna, other towns and cities of Ukraine. As well, on one hand, we may deliver these IDPs to Dobropil, to our town, and give them more or less decent accommodation there, or they could choose our place as their next home, next homeland, if they don't have any opportunity to move somewhere else. As well, we are involved in humanitarian aid. We work with international organizations. We accumulate the resources of our community in order to produce catering and hygienic units to the hygienic items to these people. As I mentioned already, we are very proactively work with humanitarian organizations. We have very clear hope that this war will end in the nearest future. That's why we are optimistic towards future. What having in mind the new greenhouses to be mounted. We understand that the demand is shrinked now, but if before we delivered the produce to Kramatorsk and other cities, to our own town, but now we use that produce to supply food to our IDPs. And again, we'd like to expand in sense of range of our produce. Before we dealt with the green onion, now we can find some new items to grow. We understand that some part of the produce we may sell, some part of them we will not be able to sell. So we will probably as well create new jobs. That is very critical, very important for us and for our country now. I had certain phase that Dobropilla could become a ghost city because we are gravely dependent on the coal mine. But now I'm afraid that a great area in Donbass could become deserts because of this war. That's why we rely on the help from international organizations in that sense. And dear colleagues, if you have any questions, I am ready to answer them.
Thank you, Andre. And so does the greenhouse now support women who've experienced domestic violence? And can you share a little bit more? If so, how?
Я вважаю, що
I
нам
believe that
пощастило, що в нас є така
we
команда.
were lucky that we have very nice team,
Тому що всі ті, хто
very
працював на підприємстві,
devoted team, because everybody who worked in this enterprise, all of them, they still work there. Moreover, they fund extra time in order to support IDPs as well.
хотілося б сказати, що
And I would like to say that
центр, який у нас
not only this rehabilitation center I mentioned, we
більш ніж
leased another 700 square meters premises. Now we equip it in order to accommodate more and more people. So according to our calculations, we will be able to take 70 to 80 persons extra to that premises.
That's fantastic. And I think especially at this time, food security will be a huge issue in times of crisis, especially. The next question I have for you is a little more personal, because this is actually the second time that you are at the epicenter of these hostilities, first in 2014 to 2015, and now. What helps you personally survive in these difficult conditions? And what would you say is the recipe for resilience that you can share with our listeners?
Знаєте, окрім того, що
You
я
know, I am not only involved in development of social entrepreneurship, but I'm a psychologist as well. It happens so. So I see that people come into our area. They not only need catering or accommodation, they are in a badly need of psychological support and psychiatrical, in some cases, support. So we are trying to give them hope, that everything will be ended and they will be able to come back to their own apartments, to their own towns and their home cities, that they will have a chance to work in the future to support and to make their families prosperous. So as you are absolutely right, this is our first facing of the time of violence, time of hostility and everything. So we went through all that humanitarian catastrophe in 2014 as insiders, so we understand what type of support we can provide to the people, what kind of resources we may accumulate ourselves. We have a very reliable partners, as I already mentioned in Dobropilla. We have another social enterprise, Avita Clinic, the name is, physicians, pediatricians, other medical experts, they work there. So we send people to that social enterprise and they could have online or personal consultations and advices speaking about their healthcare. So if we sum up everything, so we just give people hope. That's our major profile of activity.
Well, thank you so much for highlighting the importance of mental health, especially at this time, and for continuing to inspire hope among IDPs in the region. Our next speaker is Maxim Peshkov, head of the charitable foundation CSO Synergy Hub and founder of the social enterprise Adoro Cafe. He will highlight the transformation of the social enterprise Adoro Cafe in response to the needs of central Ukraine. Maxim, please take the stage. Thanks.
Доброго дня. Я керівник соціального підприємства
Good afternoon. I am a head of Adora Cafe, social enterprise. We were established in 2022 with the support from UNFPA. And our major goal, the goal of our social enterprise, is to support to develop women's economic abilities for women that suffered from GBV. So we are dealing with conditoria, with coffee, tea, and some other confectionery, some other items as well. We are dealing with late breakfasts and lunches. This is a very interesting format of our cafe. So we attract a wider audience because we are able to provide business lunch and business breakfast meetings for them. In our social enterprise, we employed 30% of employees that are women suffered from gender or domestic violence. We managed to give them training in confection, waiter, and hall waitresses. Due to the proper planning of the kitchen and our confectionery, we have a chance to run educational events for women without interfering with the work of the cafe. And we've already had one of the master classes named Classic Cheesecake, and that was very successful. From the very first days of the war, our coffee shop started volunteer activity. In fact, it is rather a complicated type of activity because the restaurant and horeca business, this type of business is very painful, is very painfully overcome any pauses, stops, gaps in their activity. So immediately when we stopped our activity, we delivered all the remains of the foods, all our stocks to the roadblocks, because otherwise, because these perishable foods, perishable items, they could be spoiled in a few hours, probably days. That's why we gave it out free of charge to the people at the roadblocks, and some of the remains we as well gave out to our personnel for them to support their families. We still have certain items, and we started to make some cookies, etc.
And in our cafe, and we also gave away to our military people and the emergency services people. Next slide. Also, this social entrepreneurship also works fruitfully with the suppliers that bring in the humanitarian aid for our people. And I actually was able to get agreement with a Galician company for the Red Cross storage facilities. We also had the negotiations with the suppliers of fruits, vegetables, flour, sugar, that gave all these efforts for the Red Cross. With the help of our social enterprise, we actually got 2 buses of humanitarian aid for social services and for our military. In the future, we plan to increase the assistance to social services and our military people. I think that after the war is over, we actually have our artist that can actually give the master class on how to paint on canvas for women in the shelter that our city has. We also optimistically plan from the end of April to start working full scale so as to improve and to support our city, our economy on its level, and also give the social places and pay wages and not to be suspended like we are now. And we think that everything will be Ukraine.
Thank you, Maxim. And for you, I have a few questions. What are some of the type of difficulties that women face during the internship at the Adora Cafe? And how do you help them overcome these challenges?
З самого початку,
From the very beginning, when this social enterprise started, I had a big problem with transition from usual business to social business because I am a representative of a business. And it was difficult for me to understand how an enterprise can work with people who need help. For me, it was quite difficult from the very beginning. When we planned this social enterprise, we also had another challenge, is to find a facility for such an enterprise. And we were looking for this facility for a long time, and the design of it. There are actually a lot of challenges in restaurant business. That's personnel, first of all, to find proper people that you still need to train, to give them social places, to prepare them in a quality manner. And even some managerial positions need some better training and very precise attention to these positions. Another factor for the cafe is advertisement. I think that these are the main challenges that I faced during working at this social enterprise.
Thank you. I'm also wondering if you could tell us what superpower you think a social entrepreneur should have in order to succeed in the restaurant business.
суперсила соціального підприємництва.
Superpower of it. I believe that superpower of social entrepreneurship in general is honesty, because honesty in a social enterprise, it is seen, it is transparent when a person conveys the information in a good way. Otherwise, it's very difficult to be in the society. I also think that social entrepreneurship has to believe in people for 100%, train people, to teach people to trust other people if they do not do, and also treat other people who are around with really good respect and trust.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your inspiring work and the plans for the future. I now invite our next speaker, who is Svetlana Kalanina, a career counselor with the Ukrainian Foundation for Public Health. She will share some of the experience from our work in the Career Hub that you heard about a little earlier today. Lana?
Доброго дня. Я хочу почати.
Hello. I would like to start with the most important and best greeting now. Hello, we are from Ukraine. So I represent my honorable and bold people and counselors from all regions of Ukraine. I came to this component of Career Hub of Women in November of 2020, just before, basically during the pandemics. And I'm happy that I'm the part of such a full-scale project that was executed by the Ukrainian Foundation of Public Health and the embassy. And it was very important for that time because the pandemics changed the rules of game, and the women that suffered from GBV, they found themselves in very harsh conditions. I also would like to say that really the military actions started back in 2014, especially for two of my people who are also the career counselors, and the women actually who referred to us, they were also IDPs. And some of these women, they suffered from domestic violence because they were made by people who came back from the military actions. And we need to realize that this kind of problem might increase in the future. I used to work in a big company in the HR department, and I actually was interested in this project when I saw this position, this opening, that I could help the women to give them a chance to actually empower them and to get some financial success. And at the kickoff meeting, we also wrote down all the projects that need to be implemented, and all the strategies were written down. And we spoke about this strategy that Helena mentioned in her presentation too. And it's very important. And Anastasia Lyadneva and the girls, we realized that we have to be different from the very beginning from standard state services. It's a comprehensive career help. We help not only women, but also for women that are in a severe bad situation. They are disoriented, and our help also was given on a psychological level, on this employment level, and before directing a woman to help her with her CV, we first of all need to know what her needs are, what her weak and strong sides are, to understand which professional direction she is inclined to, how she can realize herself, and she can be motivated in this. And I'm happy that for 1.5 years, we executed more than 40 programs on different popular professions. And during pandemics, we were able to employ women who did not have any experience after their graduations because they were on maternity leave. For example, they never worked after graduation, but they had 2 or 3 children, for example. We have a success story when a woman after 3 maternity leaves was able to work as a recruiter, and she was very successful. And the state employment center gave her only the position of a janitor. I'm very happy that I was a part of this project. It's more than just compiling a CV and help her with the interview, get her the curriculum, and also to communicate with the employers, with business institutions. I'm very happy that we have such business enterprises. I am from Lviv. I've been here for 4 years, but I come from Kharkiv originally. Together with Uliana Dorosh, we had some complicated issues. We thought how to motivate women, because women sometimes are desperate during their studies. It's not that pleasant how you think in the very beginning, because you have to be persistent. You have to sit for a while. And our task was actually to support this spark to change in their lives. And besides that, we also helped the women not only for the moment when they were actually employed, but we helped them and supported them during the trial period and even after that, because after pandemics, we had some conflict. The conflict actually started this, and a big part of Ukraine actually was affected. 8 career counselors on a regular basis helped these women. So these women are in this regular accompaniment, and that's, think about it, 500 women, and they keep phoning us. They need some support, some motivation. And this is the photo that was sent to me by a very successful woman. If you had seen her before February 24, you would think she was a Hollywood star. She had her dentistry clinic, and she gave work to 6 women. She was one of the first who called me and asked for shelter. And she actually sent me this shelled dentist place in Kharkiv. They could hardly leave their apartment in their pajamas, and together with the older mother and her husband with a disability. And just 1 hour later, the bomb lay there. She does not have this successful business anymore. She does not have an apartment. So I can say that I'm kind of safe compared to my colleagues. I am proud with Yana, Theresa, and Helena. For them, this war hasn't started, because it started for them from 2014. And Yana Bereza was the one who actually understood and realized what it was like in the very beginning. And I realized that my phone has to work at all times. If I don't answer that, somebody else has to take over, because if before February 24th, we thought that every 3rd woman is affected by GBV in Ukraine and needs some help from us, needs some shelter, psychological help. But after 24th of February, we think that almost all women need some help, and not only women. I would like to thank my colleagues, Theresa, Yana, Elena, Hanna, Makarevich, Ksenia, Shulga, Elena, because they were the first who started to organize evacuation processes. They were the first who started to inform the society. Everybody heard about Mariupol, but did not hear about Volnovakha. They actually spoke about this humanitarian catastrophe. They risked their lives to take away the people from these occupation territories. Unfortunately, I couldn't tell you into our presentation of Ksenia Makarevich that actually helps humanitarian aid for senior citizens and children in a cafe. She continues to work with the risk of her life because on the occupied territories, there are very bad things. And I can quote gas chambers might appear there, like in Auschwitz. And due to the fact that they used to work as an NGO about adoption of children and organize the family-based orphanages, they were able to take away 5,500 people out of these territories, including disabled people. So likewise, Yana, Theresa, Hanna, Elena, they are the ones who organize these evacuation processes and work with the humanitarian aid. Those who are in relatively calm regions like Lviv, and they actually heard how many people there are in Lviv. So Lviv has been the major region for refugees, for everybody. I realized from the very first telephone call, we met people, we gave them clothes, we fed them. And from that very moment, our career hub turned itself into a social hub, the one that provides emergency social services that needed for IDPs, for refugees, for women with children. I'm happy and I'm proud of my country, my colleagues, my citizens, because nobody rejected me. We were able to find an apartment that we took away the trash out, like a senior citizen died in it, and we found people who take away the trash out of it, and we organized that. Besides those centrally organized shelters, our partners that we cooperated with organized the group in Telegram, Help Lviv, so that people with housing could meet people, work with housing. We didn't wait for the state to do it. We actually made a concurrent path. We gave food for the refugees. Even in my apartment, there have been about 39 refugees. Sometimes I would have 9 people in one room, 4 people in the other. And actually, it's not that's bad. This situation was for all my career counselors. It was not exception. Uliana Dorsch had the same thing. Every apartment, every building became a shelter. I'm very happy that all the time we had our good partners who helped us. I also would like to thank that these we found really good relationships through 6 handshakes. For example, children's hygiene was brought to the from the embassy to one of the affected areas. And also, I'm happy that those hostels that were in Lviv, they also gave their housing for these refugees. Many people gave everything they had. And that's actually how Career Hub is working. So we do have some positive things as well. Despite the fact that we are in a crisis, acute situation, and I am, as a person who used to work, to live for 40 years in Kharkiv, I know that there are still people that need help. We understand this, everything. We understand that now we can help a lot.
So we continue IT professional trainings. We revive psychological consultations, and women join us. So we make it scalable, and now we come back to career advising, career consultancy. So we support refugees. At the same time, we understand that not only just shelter, we must be financially able. We must take care about the next days. That's why I would like to say thank you to all of you, our partners, for your support. We will win. Everything will be Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Lana, for sharing your experiences and describing the solidarity and the response that has happened amongst your colleagues, but also within the larger community. Certainly, there was an emergency adaptation and pivot in services to a 24-hour support, a support line. I appreciated your description of going from a career hub to a social hub. And with that in mind, Lana, I'm wondering, what is the main skill that you believe main skill set that you believe a career counselor should have in order to provide quality and effective support during this time?
Безумовно, перша навичка дуже важлива
Of
для
course, one and the foremost skill of career advisor, it's empathy, specifically for the women that are that suffered from GBV, because you must understand the emotions of women. You must you must understand how can you approach this or that person. So you must be flexible, you must be adaptive. You don't have much time to understand situation, you don't have much time to be lazy or to have commotion. You even don't have time for psychological relax. I started to do it in the psychological advisory, and moreover, the braveness, so to say. You must call anybody, including Mr. President, if a need exists for that. For instance, an example from the civil time, from the quiet time, I went to take part in the games of certain teams, and I thus gave my support to the women. I made an example for them that you should not be scared of something. So in many cases, our employees, they employed or supported employment of women or women to enterprises where there was very difficult jobs like light accessories, accessories for lighting, or for instance, we delivered humanitarian aid with the support of military administration of one of the town. We delivered thermal vision devices to them. So career advisors, they are empathic, adaptive, they are brave, and they innovative. So those are the major qualities. All of my colleagues have these skills. And that's why we have our Mindstorms successful. Speaking of strategic development as well.
Thank you, Lana. At this time, I would like to open the question and answer section of this panel. And I invite participants to submit any questions to the panelists through the Q&A tab below. They will be monitored by some of our staff members who can let us know once those questions have come forward. In the meantime, I have a few questions for the general panel, and these are questions that anyone is open to answer. Thank you so much for all of your presentations. It's really inspiring to hear all of the work that has been done thus far in that shift to humanitarian aid. What I found particularly interesting is the varying perspectives that we have at the table, from an HR perspective, a human resources perspective, to a psychologist, to an atelier, to a restaurant business person, in realizing that a holistic approach is really critical to economic empowerment. And each of you have shared various success stories about supporting women and families on their journey. It certainly sounds like more of a long-term investment that each one of you has made through your organizations, and recognizing that eventual need to rebuild and support the country as it moves in that direction. The first question I'd like to ask is, when you consider the existing humanitarian efforts within Ukraine, how do you think organizations can harmonize with the efforts of those happening in neighboring host countries where they're receiving a lot of the refugees? Because there's a distinct difference between the support that's happening within the country and also supporting those who are migrating to neighboring countries. Do you have any thoughts about how best to harmonize these efforts across organizations?
Maybe I can come in, I think if it is important to understand that at the moment in some of the countries, receiving countries, they are allowing people to work. So there is no restriction on work. It just what is needed most likely is to support them to be able to start that type of ability to work, because sometimes they would need some language skills additionally, they might need some training, they might need some seed money to start up a business. All of this would be needed. It is not that there are restrictions at the moment where the population is moving to different places. I think there is a need to really support them to start up and to be able to really provide them with the additional training and support that is needed to be able to start up. Over from my side.
Thank you, Henia. Any other thoughts about how to harmonize efforts?
May I add something?
Please.
We already started to work with that, and we are dealing with online training. Some jobs that we renovate now, these jobs are on demand in many countries, and many companies already transposed or moved their employers employees. Excuse me. So, for instance, a company named Turud, they are discussing, or they're in negotiations with Bulgarian company, and they will work with AI, artificial intellect models. You don't need to be a developer or IT experts to do that. So slowly but surely we start to find people supporting as volunteers the refugees as well. We have awareness raising campaigns, online campaigns. We put the supporting materials, information materials in our websites, etc. So, for instance, we as well communicated with our colleagues from Poland, and that colleagues, they would like to be volunteers either to support us with the information on the local job seeking platforms. Some countries, again in the same Poland, the processes are more or less in hand. They are present in some countries, the processes of informal refugees. In Spain, for instance, our refugees have more troubles in finding a job. But we never abandon our people, abandon our refugees, and people even staying in Ukraine. We are trying to help them staying abroad. For instance, I know the charitable Butterfly Fund. They support our women in Poland, Netherlands, in Spain. So we're trying to find any type of contacts that we could use in order to give job to our women.
Great. Thank you so much. Any other thoughts on that question? The last question I have for the panel is, what do you see as the most critical next steps in this humanitarian response? And how can your organization best be supported? Please feel free to unmute yourself and speak.
Якщо можна, то я розповім про свою думку.
If I may, I would share my opinion in this issue. So we see now that rather many international charitable funds, they support humanitarian aid for IDPs with foodstuff, with hygienic items, psychological support, but we see the problem in accommodation of people that left the apartment somewhere. So physically we could evacuate them. I'm speaking about our Dobropilla community, but it is not enough. We have a deficiency of space, physical space for them to live, to sleep somewhere, to have a roof over their heads. So we are now trying to find some more space. Again, we understand very clearly, speaking about business activities, that today we recover our activity and we must have some support in development of our business because we are losing our markets. We understand that we may expand our activity, but to do that, we need certain additional financing in order to start up some new lines of activity. And moreover, we are speaking on tangible, intangible support. We must have experts, consultants that could advise us in agronomical aspects, because we are not agronomes, we are not experts in agriculture. We may find something in the internet, in certain books or manuals, but if we could have experts with experience, with qualification, people that are diplomated agronomic experts, then it would be great. Once again, I would like to say thank you in advance to all the partners, all the colleagues that support us, and I believe that Ukraine will win. We make all our efforts in order that Ukraine be prosperous country. If I may, Lviv, couple of words. I would like to add something to my colleague's speech, and yes, the most important factor now is that any social support we provide to people coming to us from some combat areas, military action areas, the most important here is the physical accommodation for those people. We have already 17 organizations that could provide more beds for people traveling to our region from other territories. As I already mentioned in my previous report, it is very important that our foreign partners to support us, to give us helping hand, in sense that we would be able in the future to provide or to arrange temporary shelters, not only beds, mattresses, covers, pillows, but as well some prerequisites or facilities for not temporary but constant stay, permanent stay in certain areas of Ukraine. We understand that sooner or later this war will be ended and we would have to rebuild, to say rehabilitate our infrastructure, our country, in fact, and we are one and the same country. We are not divided. So this definition, internally displacement person, I do not take it as serious because the situation now is people are mixing between each other, because the central Ukraine even and some other parts of Ukraine, this is an area of active combat actions, active combat events, and that's why people now are mixed in sense of different types of citizens. They are one and the same. Thank you.
On the part of restaurant business, I would like to add something. I agree with the thing about housing. For the people that lost their housing, they need some temporary surviving and housing. From my point of view, the goods are also needed for restaurant business. What kind of things like flour, sugar, eggs, butter? Because restaurant business after going after the war to be able to feed people, maybe not only the military people, but also the kindergartens, the schools, because the food that the state has is going to finish, and it's not only restaurants that feed our military, but the state does too. And I believe that there will be a food crisis, and restaurants, cafes, they are able to give food to catering to kindergarten schools under the conditions that they will have the goods the products. I believe that there will be a decline in the restaurant business. It will be on their knees. It won't be able to pay the wages to the personnel, despite of all the benefits from the state that the business gets. That's why I think that if the partners from abroad will help with food, will help also to financially sustain as far as wages are concerned, that would be a very good step in developing the social entrepreneurship on the part of our partners from abroad. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, colleagues. Are there any last comments on that question? Well, I see that we've come to time, and I know it's late into the evening for all of our presenters. So at this time, I'd like to say that concludes our session for today. Once again, we want to thank our esteemed panelists for their inspiring tenacity, resilience, and courage to serve in partnership during this time. We also thank our translators for their support today, which made this event possible. A special thank you to the Deputy Minister and UNFPA for joining us today and their unwavering commitment and partnership with civil society. Many thanks to the NGO CSW organizers for hosting this forum and giving us the platform to highlight and advocate for the need to empower women and girls globally, as well as continuing the support for Ukraine at this time. On behalf of HealthRight and the Ukrainian Foundation for Public Health, as co-organizers, we thank you for your time today. We appreciate your solidarity in these humanitarian efforts as we hope for a swift and peaceful resolution to this war. Thank you, everyone. There will be a recording of this session. And Anastasia, do you want to provide some basic information?
Так, шановні колеги,
Dear colleagues, yes, this event is live on our Facebook, and also all the participants will have this link to this. I also would like to all our partners, Oksana, Andrei, for Maxim, for all this cooperation and collaboration within the framework of this project. And I also would like to acknowledge my team of career counselors that also help. Everything will be Ukraine. Let's keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, we are humbled to have hosted this panel. We support your efforts. We appreciate your efforts and solidarity with Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care.